Okay, hi everybody. I guess we'll get this started. So welcome to CISC124, Introduction to Computer Science 2. This is our first meeting. If you hear beeping in the background, that's me admitting people who are coming into the meeting as a guest. So, right. So just to point out to everybody, this meeting is being recorded. Okay, so this is CISC124. I hope you've all had a chance to look at the on-cue and get started with the course. Oh, sorry, I just had to mute people because I'm getting an echo. All right, and get started with the course. I know a lot of you already have because I've gotten a lot of email about installation problems and so on and so forth. Please be patient with me while I answer your questions. It's going to take a bit of time to get to all of you. Okay, so I hope you had a chance to poke around the course. If you haven't, you should do so soon. So where do you go? Course, here we go. Okay, so the delivery of this course. So everything in this course is delivered in the form of what are called Jupyter notebooks that I'll show you in a minute. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at them already. Now it's up to you whether you choose to install the notebooks on your own computer or whether you're happy to look at them online. So the advantage of installing them on your own computer is you have a permanent copy of them that you can edit as much as you want. The disadvantage of installing them online is that you have to install a fair bit of software, and it's not exactly easy to install. Like, it's not a seamless process, and a lot can go wrong when you go to install the software. Now, if you don't want to install the notebooks, you can always look at them online, right? So this is them online right now. The disadvantage to only using them online is that one, you need an internet connection that's working. You don't need a lot of bandwidth because it's all just text for the most part. But you need a working internet connection, and you don't have a permanent copy of the notebooks, right? So right now, this notebook is running on some server. Where is it? Somewhere in the world, right? And so whenever you make a change to the notebook, it doesn't save the notebook on their server, right? It's just you make the change. The change is active for as long as you have the notebook up and running. Whereas if you make changes to your notebook on your own local copy, you get the changes. You get to keep the changes, and that might be useful. Okay. So I'll go back to the notebooks shortly. I just have to, every once in a while, I'm going to click on something in here to keep the notebook alive. So if you're using the online notebook and you go away to have lunch or something, when you come back, you're going to get a window here saying that something's timed out and the notebook's no longer available. So you have to reload. You have to go back to the link to reload all of the notebooks, right? Again, this is because this is all running on someone else's server somewhere in the world, right? And I'm not paying anything for their bandwidth, right? So if you, for their bandwidth and for the CPU resources. Okay, so what's this course about? Well, the calendar description basically tells you what it's about. The course is done in Java, but it's not really a Java course. It's not supposed to be a Java course. What it is, it's supposed to be a course in object-oriented programming and design. Right, and so object-oriented programming design is a little bit different than what you did in CISC121. So in CISC121, you probably, for the most part, did what's called procedural programming. That is, you wrote some code that calls some functions, and that was more or less the end of it. In object-oriented programming, you create these things called classes, and using the classes, you create these things called objects, and you use the objects to write your program. And your program is more or less a bunch of interacting objects. And that's a different way of programming. So the language is Java, as I'm sure you found out. And so so the first several weeks of the course are basically teaching you how to transition from Python into Java. Okay, so let's see. Textbook. There's no textbook for the course. No required textbook. There are many, many, many suitable textbooks for this course. This Absolute Java, that's a commonly used textbook. I think it's what the previous instructor had as the recommended book. The Queen's University Bookstore has some copies. It's very expensive. If you really want a textbook, you can consider that one. This one is available from the Queen's Library electronically. You can use that one if you want a reference and for extra exercises. The library also has this book available. It's not a textbook. If you're planning on doing any Java programming professionally, you really need to read this textbook. This book, sorry, it's not a textbook. You should really at some point read this book. It's written by one of the creators of the language, so Joshua Block. And it's basically a book that describes many best practices when using the language. The grading scheme has been fixed. Some of you pointed out that it was broken. Thank you for pointing that out. It's now been fixed. You have 3 quizzes. You have 1 assignment due next week. It's quite short. It's basically here to make sure students have gotten a Java environment up and running and that they can make some simple, very simple Java programs, right? So assignment 1 is not difficult. Assignments 2 through 5 can be, reasonably challenging, and you should expect them to take up more of your time. And then there is an exam for the course. Yeah, the exam doesn't have a huge weight, but notice the comment. It would be nice that you passed the exam. So it says you have to pass the exam to pass the course. It would be nice if you passed the exam, right? When you go to write the exam. Okay, course reading. So everything here is on the. So if you go to the weekly schedule for the entire course is all filled out, right? So for every week, you can find out what I'm expecting you to read. This is probably a lot for week 1. Although I do know somebody who got to hear yesterday. So, but this is probably a little too much for some students, most students, I would say, to consume in week 1. But you should try to get through as much of it as you can. Right? Activities and assessments. Is this here? You have to expand these? Oh yeah, you have to expand them. That's annoying. Why doesn't it show it to you automatically? Make sure you click on these things to find out what's here. Right? Assignment 1 will come out tomorrow. It's due next week. As I said, it's due next week. Like I said, it's not difficult, right? It's to make sure you've gotten a good start in the course. So if you click on every week, everything's here, right? You can tell you what you should be reading. Assignments will be posted on the start date, right? And the entire course is basically laid out except for possibly week 12. Yes, week 12 is not laid out yet. So it's unclear what we're going to be doing in week 12. But that'll show up, well, before week 12. Okay, let's see. Course readings resource. Okay, so under course readings and resources, there are videos that show you how to install the software if you want to have your own local version of the notebooks. Which reminds me, I should click on something here. Okay. Windows instructions are here. Mac OS instructions are here. I don't know if they work for High Sierra because Mac likes to make big updates. And I think this was done for Catalina. And I know that there was just a major update. So I don't know if they work in the most recent version. Hopefully they do. Hopefully not a lot has changed. If you don't want to install the notebooks, you don't have to do these 2 things, right? Or if you run into trouble doing these 2 things, it's not the end of the world because everything is available online. You do need to install a Java development kit, so you should do that. It doesn't really matter which version you install, as long as you're version 8 or higher. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're installing Java 15, right? It's fine. Here's a little video that shows you how to use Eclipse. So Eclipse is the IDE that we're using in the course. So IDE is Integrated Development Environment. So it's our Java programming environment. This video shows you how to install it and create a little Java project in Windows. The instructions are, to create the project is exactly the same no matter if you're on Mac or in Windows. Here's Eclipse right now, right? So basically, if you want to create a new project, it's just new Java project, and away you go. Okay, so you can look at that video for all the details. Notebook files. Okay, so this is the important part here. So you can get the notebook files in 3 different ways. If you know how to use Git, you can grab them from my GitHub. The Git will always be updated with the most recent version. This zip file probably will not be updated anymore because you'll have to basically, I don't want to update the zip file because if you overwrite the existing notebooks with the notebooks from an updated zip file, you lose all of your edits. So whenever I have to make an update to a notebook file, it'll be as an individual file. You just download the file and put it into the correct place on your computer, right? Online. Okay, so here's the problem with Anaconda and Beaker X. Well, not Anaconda. Beaker X is the problem. If you're a student who has a computer and the operating system language is not English, so in particular, if it's one of the Chinese languages, Beaker X probably won't work for you, which I apologize for, but I did not know that this was a problem when all the content was created. I believe that localization is not supported properly in Beaker X. So localization is basically what language is your operating system set to. And so if you go through the steps of installing Anaconda and Beaker X, everything will seem to work, but when you go to run the notebook files, they won't work properly. Which is why, which is one of the reasons why they're also available online. You can still download the notebook files and edit them on your computer. It's just that when you run them, they won't work properly. Unfortunately, running the code that's in the notebooks is one of the most powerful things that the notebooks offer. So that's a bit of a bummer, actually. It was a lot of work making the notebooks, and it's unfortunate that not every student will be able to use them. However, the online versions of notes will always be up to date. And you can still use them in the same way that you would use your local ones. It's just that whenever you make changes to them, you won't see the changes. Okay, so hang on, someone's got their microphone. No? Okay. Okay, so now regarding the notebooks. So almost every notebook that we're going to be using in the course is already here, right? There will be a few additions, especially in part 3 at the end, and probably in part 2, and possibly there will be one additional one in part 1, where I add notebooks to cover material that I covered in the labs last term. So everything's already here. So there is a recommended reading schedule, but you can work through the notebooks. If you want to go faster, by all means, go faster, right? You can plow through all the notebooks in, say 4 weeks if you wanted to, if you were so inclined, right? I guess we should take a look at the notebooks so I can show you what they're actually capable of doing. So here's the first set of notebooks. You can see it's just a web page, and it looks like a web app. So you've got some buttons up here that let you do some stuff. Let me just go down to here. So whenever you see a gray box in the notebook, that gray box contains code, right? This one happens to contain Python code. Most of the code in the notebooks is Java, right? When you see a gray box, you can run that box. So if I click on the run button, this code will actually run. This will take a second to start up the Python kernel. This is a Java notebook, so when you use a different language, it takes a little longer to actually do something. Also, this is running on someone's server somewhere, so I'm not sure how long it's going to take to run. The Java stuff will run instantaneously. Okay, so we'll just wait for that to work. Okay, here's the Java version of Hello World, right? Notice it's very different than the Python version. Python version's one line. Java version's a lot longer. Click on the button, and this server is very slow. This should run like basically instantaneously. What's going on? Oh, there we go. Hang on. Is it going to output something? This is a little embarrassing. Sorry. This should not be this slow. This should be more or less instantaneous. What's going on? Hang on. I'm just going to kernel restart. Yeah, that's fine. Kernel ready. Okay. There you go. Oh, there you go. Okay, right. Okay, that's good. Okay, so notice this doesn't print anything. There is the next box explains why this doesn't print anything. So Java is a compiled language, which means to run this program, you have to run it through a compiler. The compiler turns it into something called bytecode. So the compiler basically reads your Java code, determines if it's valid, and then produces output that is more suitable for running on your computer. Well, in this case, it produces output that's more suitable for running on a Java virtual machine. To actually run this code, you have to run the next line. So I actually have to call this method. And so I have to do that manually here. And so there you go. So now it prints out hello world. Right? So this is kind of showing you the steps in how the differences in running a Java program and the differences in running a Python program. Right? In a Java program, it has to be compiled, then it has to be run. Whereas a Python program can normally be run directly. I'm not going to wait for this to run. It will print hello world. Okay, in the notebooks, you'll see there are exercises, right? All the exercises have solutions, right? So if you click on the exercise solution and wait for it to load. Okay, here we go. Right, you will find right here every solution for every exercise in the notebook, right? You have access to these already. There's a lot of code, right? There was a lot of code that was written for your exercises. Close a look. Here we go. Okay, but you can do for the most part, you can do the exercises in the notebook, right? So here's the hello world program. Exercise 1 says edit it so that it outputs a different message. Okay, so you just go into the notebook and change it. So CISC124, right? Run it to compile it, and then call the main method, and away you go, right? And there's some more explanation here. You should read what's going on here later on, right? Now the notebooks, they're not just. It's not just that you can run code in the notebooks. You can actually edit the notebooks and to include your own edits if you're running them locally on your computer. Right. So if you're running this notebook locally on your computer, you have a copy of the notebook. So you can make, you can edit the notebook, including the text. Right. So for example, I just want to find something here that might make sense. Here we go. Okay. So in Java, there's a type called int that represents integers. Right? You know in Python, because you've all taken 121. Well, probably most of you have taken 121. There might be some transfer students who haven't. There's also a type called int in Python. The int types are different in the two languages. Right? In Python, there's no minimum or maximum value. In Java, there is. So if I run this cell, it will output the minimum and maximum integer values. Right? Right. So when you're reading this notebook, you might want to make a note to yourself, right? Oh, Java's got this maximum and minimum value, right? And that's different than Python. And so you can insert your own cell, right? Now, when you insert a cell, it's always code. So you have to change the type to Markdown, and then you can add some text, right? So, hey, remember, Java ints have a minimum and maximum. right? And then you can save. Well, I can't save it because this is online, but you can actually save your edit, right? And so the next time you come back to look at your notebooks, this message will be sitting here, right? This note will be sitting here for you, right? So if you're reading the notebooks and you have questions, right, that you want to ask during office hours, either to a TA or to me, you can edit the notebook directly, insert your question, and then when you're talking to the TA or to me, if you want, you can pull up the notebook and show us the question, right? Similarly, you can edit any code that's here, right? And a lot of the notebook readings and exercises will say, hey, you should edit this cell to do something and then run the cell, right? Let's see. So let me find an example. Anywhere? So for example, so this shows you the difference between division. Where to go? Did I click on it? You have to click on the right cell to run it. Here you go. You have to click on the cell to run the cell. Okay. Where is it? Oh, this is showing you a division in Java of int values. So division of int values in Java is uses the single slash. It doesn't have Python's double slash, right? So division in Java is just a single slash. If x and y are both int, it's always int division, right? So 1 divided by 2 is 0, right? So in Java, it's what's called truncating division, right? 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. It throws away everything after the decimal point, right? Minus 5 divided by 3 is, what is that? That's minus 1 2/3. So it throws away everything after the decimal place, right? So you get minus 1. Right, and so anytime you see a gray cell in a notebook, you should run it, right? Click on the cell, run it, see what happens, right? Oh, look, if I divide by 0 and I'm using ints, I get an exception, right? I get an error, right? Here's a weird one. So here's integer max value, right? That's the largest int value. If I add 1 to that in Java, something weird happens, right? Suddenly the value becomes negative. Right, it becomes integer min value, right? That's very different compared to Python, right? But when you get to this notebook, you can read all about it, right? I'm just showing you what you can actually do with these notebooks, right? And again, almost every notebook has exercises in it. I think there are probably a few short notebooks that don't have exercises, right? For the most part, you can do the exercises in the notebooks. You don't have to do them in the notebooks, right? If you want to, fire up Eclipse, create a class, do the exercises in Eclipse, right? And that will get you practicing programming in Eclipse, right? But for all these short little, well, reasonably short exercises that the notebooks have you do, for the most part, you can do them indirectly. And so it turns out this is a very powerful way of learning how to program well, any language actually. Being able to see the code and edit it directly in the document itself is a lot more convenient than having to switch between a document and an editor or an IDE and running it in the IDE, right? The limit is that you can't create big programs. Well, you can, but it's harder to create big programs inside of a notebook. Right, but even then, you can still do it. It's still possible to do. Right? Okay, so the way this course works is you should follow the weekly schedule. Right. So make sure you click on the weekly schedule. Try to keep up more or less with what's here. Right. If you have questions about the material, there will be a forum created shortly for each week, right? So for each week, there'll be a forum for the week 1 notes, week 2 notes, and so on and so on and so on. You post your questions there. Someone will eventually get around to reading it, hopefully, and answer your question. Students are encouraged to answer other students' questions as well. TAs and me. So are the TAs not here? Oh, I didn't fill this in. I haven't filled this in. Okay, so I'll fill this in later today. All of your TAs will have 1 hour per week of office hours. The office hours are held on Teams, right? So you just jump on Teams during their office hours and contact the TA and ask them questions about the course material. The office hours will start next week. I'll have office hours as well. I can't believe I forgot to fill this in. I'll have office hours as well, starting this week, I think. So starting, I think it'll be Friday, Thursday or Friday. So starting this week, mine, I'll have office hours. And again, they'll all be on the CISC124 team for the winter 2020-21 term. Okay, so if you, yeah, make sure you're on the right team when you try to join a meeting, right? So, yeah. Is there anything else I want to say about this? Anybody have any questions? Oh, there are some questions. Hang on. I haven't done. Oh, okay, here we go. This is so helpful. We need. Whoa. Okay, wait. Where did it go? Hang on. First meeting. Here we go. I finished week 2. Hey, awesome. Someone finished week 2. That's great. Yeah, when I was an undergrad, I finished, I spent all the reading week finishing one course. That turned out to be really useful for me that term. But anyway, I mean, don't kill yourself trying to do this. Make sure that you actually understand the material that you're reading. I'm happy that you finished week 2, though. It's awesome. A lot of sarcasm in the comments. Is there an advantage to using a particular IDE? Yes. Well, so okay. So I'm using Eclipse. Everything, any video I create, or any of the any techniques that are specific to Eclipse, I'm only going to show you how to do in Eclipse. So, for example, when I show you how to create a debug, when I show you how to use the debugger in Eclipse, well, I'm only going to show you how to use the debugger in Eclipse. When we do unit testing in Eclipse, I'm only going to show you how to do unit testing in Eclipse. If you already know how to do this in, say, JetBrains or IntelliJ, that's great. The assignments are provided as Eclipse projects. So as long as you know how to import them into your IDE, it's fine, right? It's just a zip file, so you just unzip it and pull the files in, right? If you're using another IDE already, you probably know what you're doing, right? So it shouldn't be an advantage. The advantage of using Eclipse is that Eclipse is the best. That's debatable. IntelliJ is simply superior, also debatable. Everybody will have a different opinion, as I'm sure you all know. Okay, we'll receive support with Eclipse issues. That's right. NetBeans or nothing. Exactly, right? Eclipse Gang, IntelliJ, Notepad. Notepad's possible. Yeah, you could do it in Notepad if you really wanted to. Binary, don't do it in binary. Is there a tutorial on how to uninstall Anaconda and PQRX? There's no tutorial for that. Anaconda though has extensive documentation. Yeah, docsanaconda.com will tell you how to get rid of Anaconda. BeakerX is installed into Anaconda. So when you nuke Anaconda, it should nuke BeakerX as well. Lucy, I don't think I have a video showing you how to uninstall. I don't think I have one. Visual Studio Code, yeah, you can do it in code if you wanted to, that's fine. BlueJ, don't use BlueJ. You use BlueJ if you want, it's fine. We needed this in 121, okay. Well, I'm teaching 121 this term too, so it's all Jupyter notebooks as well. My Jupyter notebook kernel is set to Python 3 and Java isn't an option. Yeah, so I don't think you've got BeakerX installed properly. So you have to install BeakerX, and then when you start the notebooks, you have to make sure that you're in the BeakerX environment, right? So you have to follow the instructions pretty closely. If you're still having trouble with that, drop by during office hours or fire me an email, and I'll try to answer you. Barely chugging on 4 gig of RAM. There's a lot of commentary here. This is good. It's hard to get to the questions though. But anyway, may I ask why seemingly some of the Java elements run in one step in the notebook? Yes, that's an absolutely good question. So the question is, why is it sometimes I have to, where's a closer look, first pro, okay. Sometimes you have to, okay, so the answer is if you have a complete Java program, you have to compile first and then you have to run. So this is a complete Java program, right? There's a class. Inside the class, there's a main method. So this one, when you run it, it just compiles the program. It doesn't actually run the code, right? Which is why you have to run it with this, right? This line is actually an incomplete Java program. If you have an incomplete Java program, the Java kernel in Jupyter will compile that incomplete code into some hidden class and then automatically run it, right? So for example, where's the integer notebook, right? So here, any one of these cells, right? This is an incomplete Java program, right? It's just some fragment of Java, right? So it's just some statements of Java, right? It's not a complete Java program. If you put this into Eclipse or any Java IDE, it'll barf, right? It'll say, I don't know what you're trying to do, right? However, in Eclipse, in Jupyter, you can run it, which is nice, right? So you can run what are called snippets or fragments of code, right? And so as I explained, what's happening is the Java kernel in Jupyter is taking this code, sticking it into some method somewhere, and then running that method automatically. Right? So that's why it runs. That's why you can run this one just by clicking on the run button. Is there a video? Yes, there is a video how to install Eclipse. Everything for 124 for that sort of thing is under here, course readings and resources. You need to install a JDK first, so make sure you do that. Then you need to install Eclipse here. Okay. Installing Eclipse on Mac. I don't have one for Mac because I don't have a Mac. Although I should buy one because a lot of students are using Mac now. But install Eclipse on Mac. I'm pretty sure if you go to the here, are there instructions? There should be a video for it somewhere. You should be able to find a video that shows you how to do it. But I mean, you just download the, if you just download the installer from Eclipse, you want the one for Java. So Eclipse IDE for Java developers. Don't get the enterprise one. Enterprise one is totally different, right? You want this one, click on that. That will download the Mac installer package, run the Mac installer package. Everything should be fine. If we download Jupyter, it has the table of contents. Does it allow the contents of all links as well? If you download the Jupyter page, if you just download this page, you only get this page. If you look at the, so this is the online notes, right? These are the ones that are online. So if you click on any of them, it'll automatically download, it'll automatically load this page somewhere else. I don't really know what you mean if you just download the table of contents. Does it download everything else as well? If you just download the one file TOCIPYNB, then no, it will not download everything else as well. You either have to, where is it? Oh, sorry, wrong one. Go back. You have to, here they are, notebook files. Right, if you're getting it from Git, just clone the whole repository. The zip file has everything in it. Online, you just click on links online. What do the quiz formats look like? Quizzes are usually, they're probably going to be a little different this term because they're a little bit longer this term. Last term I ran very, very short quizzes, but there were a lot of them. So this term there's going to be fewer of them, but they'll be a little longer. They're a mix of multiple choice, multiple select, short answer, and write a small amount of code. They're all on OnCue, right? So I think I'm going to change it. So last term, I had students write in 3 different, they could pick whenever they wanted to write, but it was like 3 different times. I'm probably just going to open it up for 24 hours this term and let you write whenever. It's a real hassle trying to manage multiple times for the quizzes. I wasn't able to find the Eclipse project archive named the Eclipse. Oh, no, sorry, yeah. The, hang on. Yeah, there's a, where to go? There's a, the videos are out of date. They're slightly out of date. Where is it? How to, using Jupyter Notebook, right. Here, the video is from a previous version of the course. So the zip file you're looking for is CISC124 Winter 2021 Master, which you can get from here. Okay. Yeah, the video shows was for last term, and not all of the notes were ready. Is there a way I'd prefer for you to address me? I don't. And I have cat. Yes, you have. I have cat. I have. I'm taking care of 5 cats at the moment. You can call me whatever you want, basically. So you can use my name. I don't mind if you call me Burton. You can call me Professor Ma, Dr. Ma, Professor Burton, Dr. Burton. It doesn't matter really. Just use my name if you want. It's fine. Can you see the cat? I have the door closed because they're bugging me, so you can't see them right now, but maybe some other time. I've only ever used NetBeans. Eclipse is pretty. Okay, that's great. Oh, there's still people commenting on which editor to use. Okay, so how do we open files on our computer? Which software? How do we open the files? So I don't know which files you mean, Adam. If you mean the notebook files, then you should just watch this video here. If you mean there aren't any Eclipse files yet, I don't think, so that's not relevant yet. Do I have to uninstall BeakerX before uninstalling Anaconda? No, just nuke Anaconda, and I think BeakerX will go away too. Is there any significance between OpenJDK and the official? No, there's no important difference between OpenJDK and the official JDK from Oracle. The official JDK from Oracle is annoying if you don't want the most recent one, right? So if you want something older than Java 15, I think, at the moment, you have to create an Oracle account. The OpenJDK ones are a little harder to install. I use BlueJ in grade 12 and it sucked. Yeah, BlueJ. So BlueJ is an editor meant for teaching. Is really meant for teaching kids. Well, not kids. Like I mean, high school kids, students how to program. OpenJDK is open source. That's right. I chose to open the books online instead of downloading Anaconda. Is that fine? Yeah, Handsit, that's fine. You can use the notes online if you want to. But as I mentioned before, the big disadvantage is you can't make a permanent edit to the notebook that way. All right, so if you want to use the notebooks as a way of taking notes, you can't do it with the online version. How is object-oriented versus function-oriented different? So it's object-oriented versus procedural. So procedural is what you probably learned mostly in 121. Procedural programming is where you make a bunch of functions, and your program basically calls a bunch of functions. Object-oriented programming is you create these things called objects, and your program is a collection of interacting objects. So that's the basic, that's the very short answer between what the difference is. So in this course, you have to learn how to make these things called objects. And so the way you do that in Java is you create what's called a class. And so that's what part 2 of the notes is. Part 1 of the notes is more or less procedural programming in Java. BlueJ ran slowly on my gaming rig. Yeah. This is wonderful. I'm glad you think this is wonderful. Not everybody thought it was wonderful last term. Wow, there's a lot of different comments on what editors to use. Pen and paper is not good. Don't use pen and paper. Are we using the same commenting on and formatting on assignments as CISC121? Is there a guide to formatting assignments? I think you mean, is there a style guide, Mohammed? Styling in Java is different than styling in Python. So it's very different. You'll see that as you work through the notebooks. The short answer is whatever I do in the notebooks is what you should be trying to emulate in your assignments. Okay? Commenting and stuff, I'll explain later on when we get to doing that sort of thing. What you were taught, I think, in 121 regarding commenting is going to be different in Java. In Java, you'll see when you hit this notebook here. Or is that notebook? It's actually all the way in part 2, I think. Java has a very particular way of commenting, of documenting classes. The Mac, whoa, this is really hard. Okay, the Mac, where to go? The Mac one was pretty much, yeah, I think the Mac installation is pretty much the same as for Windows. Your first mistake was using a Mac for programming. No, Mac's fine for programming. I found the problem. Yeah, you have to use, that's right, Seb. You have to use the Anaconda prompt to launch BeakerX. Can we get an estimate on the frequency? Yeah, actually, I think the quiz is time. I think the dates are already there. So someone's asking about when are the quizzes. I think they're already in the weekly schedule. But where are they? Yeah, here's first quiz is in February. Where's the next one? There's 3 of them, so I don't remember. I think it's here. Yeah, then in March, and then somewhere towards the end. I think it's the second last week. Yeah. Okay, so Aaron's got a question. Will we have this meeting every week? So I want to have a weekly meeting. It's not really going to be a lecture. Well, it won't be a formal lecture. But basically, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do. I might do things like work through the exercises in some of the notebooks with you. I might get you started on some of the assignments. I might do things that aren't covered in the notebooks, right? So, when we get to debugging in Eclipse, right, I'll probably run a weekly session where I show you how to use the Eclipse debugger to step through your program. Right. So yes, there will be a weekly. I want to have a weekly meeting. It will always be recorded, right? Because a lot of students can't make this time. It'll probably be roughly at this time every week. You can come if you want to, right? It'll always be recorded. Multiple correct answers from the multiple choice, or only one. For my multiple choice, there's always one correct answer. Now, there are what are called multi-select questions, where you have to select all of the answers that are correct. There are some of those. Those are real. Some of those are really quite tricky. But for multiple choice, it's always one correct answer. I believe the weekly meeting is on. No, so there's no official. Aiden, there's no actual official lecture time for this course. So the university policy is that there are no. We should have no synchronous. So the university says everything should be asynchronous, which means there's no scheduled. There's no scheduled meetings. The reason for that is because there are many students who are not in this time zone. So, for example, there's students in China. There are students in Europe, right? And so, if I have a scheduled. So, if I have this meeting now, it's probably like either 2 or 4 a.m. in Beijing, right? And so, it's not reasonable to ask them to come. So there are no official scheduled times for the course yet. And so that means anything I want to do that's synchronized, right, scheduled, I have to schedule myself. So I'm just going to pick a time sometime. Hopefully most students can make it if they want to make it. If a lot of students can't make it because one of your other courses has something that's scheduled there, we'll have to move it. You should be reading the notebooks, and you should be reading them at the pace described in the calendar, in the weekly schedule, right? So everything you need to know is in the weekly schedule, right? That's the recommended pacing. You don't want to fall too far behind. You can fall a little bit behind. This is a lot for week 1. I know this is a lot, right? Especially if you've never programmed in Java. This is a lot of stuff to work through. But you should try to keep up with the weekly pacing, okay? I mean, multiple answers were fine. Sometimes there's an answer that was really on the fence and you just had to guess. Have to guess. No. Well, I mean, that's not the way I try to design my multiple choice questions. So, I mean, if you're in the situation, yeah. So I don't think there's any situation where you just have to guess, or I hope there isn't. If the student actually understands the material that the question is trying to answer, you shouldn't be in the situation where you have to guess, right? Also, I don't tend to ask questions where you're basically acting as the compiler, or where you're acting as a compiler, right? So I don't ask questions like, will this compile, right? That's not really a good question in my mind. Because whenever you're programming in an IDE. You're probably programming in an IDE, and the IDE will tell you if it compiles or not. Yeah. Okay. Whenever you see a multi-select question, right, I will say it's a multi-select question, right? The question will say, choose all of the solution, choose all of the answers that are correct. Okay. I'll never just post a multi-select question and expect you to click all the right ones, right? What's the difference between Eclipse versions we use and other Eclipse versions? There's no big difference. Don't use anything too old. That's the only difference. Anything from even like 3 years ago, I think would be fine. Sean, oh, sorry, Sean, you're waiting in the lobby. Whoop. Okay, let me go back. Oh, hang on. Admit. Okay. Come on. All right. Out of curiosity, why should I not use binary? I don't know if that's a serious question or not. I guess if you knew how to program in bytecode, if you knew how to encode bytecode in binary, you could do it that way. It would be pretty tough. What do you do your research in? What are you researching? What are you related to? So my research area is computer-aided surgery, or was anyway. Was computer-aided surgery. Currently, I'm starting to become more interested in researching teaching methods and things like that. Only 3 quizzes. Yeah, only 3 quizzes. They're going to be like an hour long. So yeah, so there's that, right? So I mean, they're basically acting as 3 midterms, right? You should be saying 3 midterms. That's a lot. But anyway, is there a lab time? No, there's no lab time. They again, they asked us to get rid of the synchronous sessions, so there's no lab time. Anything else? I program on punch cards. Yeah, they used to program on punch cards. It's true. What resources are we allowed to use? Oh, so on the quizzes. So look, everything's online. I don't use online proctoring. So your quizzes are all on OnQ. You can use, so you should use Eclipse. You should use your IDE or whatever IDE you're planning on using. You should use your IDE when you are writing the quiz. Okay, absolutely. You can look stuff up online. Obviously, we ask you don't communicate to other people, right? So you shouldn't be posting questions to Stack Overflow or what's the other one that I can't remember. But you shouldn't be doing stuff like that, right? But otherwise, I mean, it's basically an open book quiz. So you can have all of your notebooks open, right? That's fine. You can have Eclipse up and running. That's fine, and you should do that, right? It's more or less open book. How do you submit the assignments? The assignments are submitted on OnQ. Will we be using any GUI packages like Java FX? Probably not, to be honest. We're supposed to, so the course description says you're doing GUIs, but there's nothing intellectually interesting about a GUI programming. So we're probably not going to get there. If you look at the table of contents of the notebooks, there's a lot of stuff here. Like that's a lot of material to chug through in 12 weeks, right? So adding GUIs to this is probably not a great idea. How do we submit the assignments? Again, submit the assignments in OnQ. So are the quizzes going to be available for 24 hours? They'll be open for a window, Yash. I don't know if they'll be open for 24 hours, but they will be open for a window. It could be open for 2 windows or something like that, but yeah, but there'll be something. The Java GUI is horrible. I think you mean FX and Swing are horrible. Yeah, they're to be blunt, every graphical user interface library is not great, right? They're all pretty similar, right? They all have their similarities. They all are not great to use, to be honest. What file type should we be submitting? Oh, that's a good question. You're always submitting the .java file. Okay, you're never submitting you're always submitting the .java file. FX is better, but Swing is disgusting. Yeah, I guess. Someone says crickets. Who had crickets here? Where to go? Any other questions? What will the assignments look like? So your assignments, the first one is quite short, as I mentioned, because I just want to make sure that you have a working Java environment up, and you can do some basic Java programming. The other assignments are basically implement one or more, sometimes many more classes to solve some problem. Right? I'm not, for 124, I don't tend to ask a whole bunch of short programming questions. They tend to be something bigger that tries to build to something. Is there any limit on what we can use module-wise? I don't know what you mean by module-wise. But yes, you should not be bringing in external libraries, right? Why are there ads in chat? Yeah, I don't know why there are ads in chat if you're seeing them. I don't have them. For assignments, are we ever editing code provided to? Yes, you are editing. So often you'll get some skeleton code, right? So you get starter code. Yeah, someone is plugging their own app during class. Are we expected to include frequent comments in our code? So I'll explain what you should do for comments later on. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Anybody? Anybody? So we cannot use outside. No, you should not be using outside libraries and assignments. Are you familiar? Yes, I am familiar with BOGO sort. Bozo sort. Yes. Oh, hey. Yeah, I'm still sharing my screen, right? Okay, so this is what happens if you're using the online notebooks. Okay, so if you're using the online notebooks and you don't do something with the notebook for a while, I don't know how long it is, you'll get this message here, right? When this happens, if you click on this, it won't, yeah, you'll get this message here. You can't, so what's happened is the server that was running this notebook is shut down, right? And it's because this is running on someone else's server for free. And so what you have to do is you have to find the link to the notebooks again. I happen to know it's on my GitHub, so I'm just going to do it that way. So you have to come back and click the link. And the other thing I have to warn you about if you're using the online notebooks is starting the repository can sometimes take a long time. So like 10 minutes. Okay. Is there any crossover from CISC? Yeah, so if you read the notebooks, oh, hang on, which are loading right now. Many of the earlier notebooks will say, this is how you do it in Python, this is how you do it in Java. So here's indentation, for example. Right, so here's Python, right? You're using spacing to indent in Python. Java uses braces, right? So yes, there is carryover. Right. Yeah, exactly what Andrew said. First part is about transitioning from Python to Java. Firefox better than Chrome? No. You can use whatever web browser you want. I mean, in Windows, even Edge is pretty good. So you can use whatever browser you want. They all have, you know, it depends on how philosophical you want to get about your web browser. Right. I mean, Firefox takes up a lot of computing power too. Sometimes it depends on what you're looking at, how many tabs you open, all sorts of things, right? Okay. Any other questions? Anything else? Anything else? Oh, Sean, yeah. Poor Sean's been waiting in the lobby for a while. Teams won't admit him for some reason. Back of the edge is okay. Yeah, it's true. Right. So web browsers, programming languages, IDEs, people have strong opinions about all these things, right? So I'm not going to evangelize for anything in particular. Yeah, I mean the most recent builds of Edge are okay. Right? How can I download RAM? Can't download RAM. Do we submit Java? Yes, you submit Java files for the assignments. Anybody else? If not, we're done for today. Look for updates on OnQ. Right, well, for 124 they won't be super frequent because most of the materials are already. Still miles behind Chrome, or yeah, I mean again, I think it really depends on what you're using your browser for, right? If you're just reading email or visiting, YouTube or something like that, it doesn't really matter what you use, to be honest. Yes, we have cats. I have 2, plus we're taking care of 3 of our cousins' cats. So I have 5 cats in the house right now. Can you help me get Java working on Visual Studio? Probably not, because I don't use Java in Visual Studio. So unfortunately, no, Drake. I can't help you with that. Although, I mean, so for questions like, I mean, you should be able to find lots of stuff online, though, if you search for getting Java working in Visual Studio. I don't have fish. Sorry, no fish. Okay, I think that's the end of the Dimitri's question. Oh, yeah, so let me see. Where's will we submit entire? No, don't. Usually I don't want you to submit the entire project file. So the reason is as follows. When I retrieve your assignment from OnQ, your assignments get processed by a bunch of code that I have. So they get processed automatically. So what happens is as much as possible, I take your code, compile it, and run it against a bunch of unit tests. Now, obviously, I can't do that for all of your code because if you make your own class, I have no idea what's in your class, so I can't unit test it that way. But if you submit like a zip file or a project file, I can't process it automatically easily. So when I ask you to submit code, your assignment, I'm very specific in what I ask you to submit. Right, that lets me download it from OnQ and then automatically process it. If I have to stop to process one student's submission because for example, they submitted a zip file, that really kills my productivity because I can spend 10 or 15 minutes processing a single student's submission, and there are like 200 and how many students are in this section in this course? There's over 100. Are there over 200 here? I don't know how many there are here. There's a lot of you in this course. So I'd prefer if you did not submit your assignments in a way that I'm not asking for. Do you need to download all the pages individually on Jupyter? Just download the zip file. Or Andrew, just download the zip file or clone the entire Git repository. And that's it. Okay. Anything else? Is there a set time? Yeah, I'm gonna pick a time and I'll post that on OnQ later this week. Okay. TA office hours will go up this week. My office hours will go up shortly. Yeah. All right. I think the weekly meeting will be the same time. Well, it won't quite be the same time. It'll be Tuesdays as well. All right, everybody. I think I'm done. This actually went a lot longer than I thought. So I will see you next week, hopefully. All right. Okay, everybody. Stay safe. Thanks for coming. I'll post this. I'll post a link to the video later this evening. All right.